Welcome! Today we are making pork char siu, also known as Chinese barbecued pork. It's a succulent pork shoulder that's been marinated in a lovely Asian combination of flavors that include soy sauce, hoisin, and oyster sauce. It's easier than you think to put together, so let's get started. Now it's important that you start this recipe 1 to 2 days in advance because your pork shoulder needs to marinate for 24 to 48 hours for best flavor. Today's pork char siu starts with a pork shoulder roast. And what I like about using a pork shoulder roast for this recipe is the fact that it has a little bit of marbled fat throughout it, and this helps keep the meat nice and tender. And you can just see the marbled fat throughout this roast. We'll start by trimming the excess fat off of it. And once we have the roast trimmed up, we want to go ahead and cut it into 3 equal pieces. And now for the marinade, and it's really what makes this pork char siu so delicious. We're going to start with oyster sauce, and don't worry, I will have the full recipe listed for you in the description. Hoisin sauce, soy sauce, and Chinese Shoyixing wine or sherry. Today I'm using sherry because it's just easier to find in my area, and it works just as well. And honey for some added sweetness. It helps to balance out all the salt and helps to make a wonderful glaze. And our main spice for the marinade is, of course, Chinese 5-spice powder. And white pepper. A splash of vegetable or canola oil. And lastly, red food coloring. And I like to use the paste food colorings because they're very concentrated. And the red food coloring is really optional here. It imparts no flavor, but it does help to give our pork that traditional reddish barbecued hue. So if you prefer not to use it or simply don't have it, that's perfectly fine. So we're just going to go ahead and give this a stir. All right, we're ready to get our pork marinating, and we're going to start by placing our pork pieces in a large sealable bag. And simply pour the marinade into the bag over the pork. Squeeze out the air as best you can. And just roll it around a little bit to make sure the marinade gets on all the pork surface. And it's highly recommended to place the bag in a shallow dish or a baking tray. That way it'll catch anything if it happens to leak. All right, now we're going to put our pork in the fridge for a minimum of 24 hours. And you want to be sure to flip it at least once in the 24 hours. If you go 48 hours, flip it twice. I'll see you in a couple days where we'll finish up our pork char siu, and I'm going to show you a few great ways to use it. All right, so here's our pork after 48 hours. So we're going to go ahead and get this in a preheated 325-degree oven. So we want to take the pork pieces out and lay them in a single layer, leaving the marinade in the bag to use for a delicious glaze. All right, in the oven our pork goes for 30 minutes to start. All right, it's been 30 minutes for our pork, and we're simply going to flip them over and roast for an additional 30 minutes. Now we're not going to let the gorgeous marinade go to waste. We're going to make a delicious sticky glaze with it. Simply pour the marinade into a shallow pan. Add the remaining honey, about 2 tablespoons. Heat the marinade until simmering, stirring often until it coats the back of a spoon. And just look at that gorgeous glaze. Now our pork has been roasting for a total of an hour, and I'm going to increase the heat to 350 degrees. And now you want to baste the pork. And once your oven comes up to temperature, we're going to pop it back in for 10 minutes. All right, we're going to flip it once again, baste with sauce, and continue to bake for another 10 minutes. Stick with me, it's the process that makes this delicious. Okay, we're on the final stretch here. I've removed them from the oven, and you're going to turn your oven to broil now. All right, one final push to the finish, everybody. We're going to glaze again. You're going to pop those under the broiler for 1 to 2 minutes just to intensify that glaze. Okay, one more final flip and broil. The quick little bursts of broil really do create a wonderful caramelized coating. So a quick back in for 1 to 2 minutes on the broil. And now we need to cover the meat and let it rest for a minimum of 10 minutes. That will allow all the juices in the meat to return back into the fiber, making it moist and succulent. And here's our beautiful succulent pork shoulder with its burnished, sticky, sweet glaze. Let's cut into it. Do your best to cut your pork char siu against the grain. Beautiful. Now that this wonderful pork is done, let's look at a few ways that we can use it. Straight away, I like to slice it, serve it over rice with a little drizzle of the glaze. It's also fantastic, diced up and served with your favorite fried rice. How about sliced and served with your favorite ramen noodle bowl? And let's not forget war wonton soup. Thank you for joining me today as I shared my version of pork char siu, a delicious Asian-inspired way to enjoy pork shoulder. It's absolutely delicious. We'll see you again for another great recipe.